Well, this was a bad idea. Welcome back, everyone, to more from the Sableyes. I'm Mitch, and today you're going to witness one of the worst decks that I've ever built. This is something else, Butterfree VMAX. I actually didn't think that this card was that bad going into it, but gosh, it made me frustrated. This card has a very, very tough time getting going. It's cool, it's a cool deck, and it can deal a lot of damage, but by gosh, you need a lot of things to go right. What I'll do is I'll jump onto PTCGO now and show you how it works. Well, I really shouldn't say that it works as such, but it did what it was designed to do. Whether that's good enough to win games or not is another question. We will preface all of this deck by saying that if you can build a better Butterfree VMAX list, then I would love to see it, because I've spent 3 or 4 days trying to get this one to work, and I tell you what, I'm just sick of it. I'm just going to put it out there and see what comes back my way. Butterfree VMAX is actually a really cool card if you could accelerate energy easily to it. 2 grass and a colorless. G-Max Tox Breeze does 150, then your opponent is poisoned and confused. So it's base 160 for 3. It's got 300 HP, free retreat, which is pretty cool, but it's weak to fire, which is obviously floating around at the moment. This is a cool card. Like, I think this card is cool. Do not get me wrong. It is pretty solid. The basic Butterfree looks pretty as well. Look at this. This is a nice looking card. Dizzying Poison, pretty cool. It confuses and poisons your opponent, and then if you can get 3 energy on this, Blasting Wind does 130, but you'd never want to use that. We are pairing it up with Parasect. Panic Spores puts 2 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon if they are confused in between turns. So as long as your opponent's Pokemon stays in the active between turns, you will deal damage to it. That means that Butterfree does 150 plus 10 for the poison, and then 20 for every Parasect in play. That's potentially upwards of 200 damage. We've got a 3-3 line. You can do 220. That is a pretty solid hit. It's not going to take a knockout on a Zacian, though, because they're resistant to grass. But, hey, 220 on a lot of other Pokemon is going to do the job. Panic Spores, really cool ability. It's one of those ones that comes out when we're playing lots of these kind of meme tier decks. It's really cool, but not necessarily a powerful effect that's going to win you games. We've got a couple of really powerful effects here, though. Dedenne and Crobat both in this list to help us draw cards, and that is it. I mean, that's all we've got space for in this deck. I wish we had have cut a couple of these cards, by the way, in our trainer section, because we could have used a little bit better, but hey, we figured that we were going to really struggle to get energy attachments onto Butterfree VMAX, so what better way to try and slow your opponent down than playing 4 copies of Crushing Hammer. This is how you know a deck is not quite there yet, if it's relying on coin flips to stay in the game. And talking about Crushing Hammer, not only were we relying on removing energy from our opponent, we're relying on accelerating it to ourselves with Turbo Patch as well. So there's a lot of coin flips here. It works relatively well. I mean, you can get attacks off relatively consistently, but whether relative consistency is enough, I don't think so. We have 4 copies of Evo Incense and 4 copies of Quick Ball to search for Pokemon, as well as 2 copies of Turffield Stadium. This stadium works really, really well in this deck. At the moment, Dust Island, which we've got 2 copies of as well, doesn't work because the effect just is glitched at the moment. It just doesn't work. Right? So it's supposed to be when your opponent's poison Pokemon switches, the effect stays on the new Pokemon that goes to the active, but it just doesn't work right now. So those 2 cards are effectively a waste of 2 slots in this deck. We also play 1 Great Catcher because we can knock out a Dedenne with a Butterfree VMAX, so I figured that if we could get the chance to do that, that would be a good idea. We've also got 2 Boss's Orders as well, and we've got a 4-4 Marnie and Professor's Research split. Could potentially have played some other supporters. Erica seems to be one that's jumping out at me right now as potentially fitting in quite nicely. We have 2 copies of Air Balloon in the deck. That's so that we can get things like Parasect out of the active. Obviously, Butterfree VMAX has a free retreat cost, so we don't need to worry about that. But sometimes you get stuck with a Butterfree V in the active, so we might as well use it. And then down the bottom in the energy section, we have 10 grass. And 1 copy of Weakness Guard, just in case we do come up against a fire deck. I mean, this is not going to win us the game. We can't search for it or anything. We just have to hope that we get it at the right time. But hey, I'm going to say this deck does what it's supposed to do relatively consistently, but what it's supposed to do just is not good enough. So I haven't been able to figure out how to make this better. If you can make it better, leave a comment down below. Talk about all the changes that you would make to make this slightly more competitive. For now, I'll show you a couple of games that I've recorded earlier to show off how the deck is supposed to work and how it still doesn't quite get across the line. So this is the first game that I played with Butterfree VMAX. I played a lot of games with this deck. A lot of games to try and get it to work. And unfortunately, there were not too many good ones. We've got a Paras and a Butterfree here to start off with, as well as a Dedenne and a Turfield Stadium. We are going to be playing up against Vikavolt in this one. A really, really strong contender, especially for the PogChamp format, which is coming up at the moment. Very, very powerful. Got a quick ball here. We can get rid of the Dedenne and then play down a second Paras. That seems like a good place to be. Then we can research next turn to draw some extra stuff. I will grab the Butterfree VMAX out of the deck now so that we don't draw into it. I'll make sure we've got access to that VMAX at some point in the future. Good thing about Vikavolt is that it is unlikely to be able to knock our Pokemon out. It can knock out a Paras, but it can't knock out a Butterfree very easily. So we're going to presume that we're going to be able to get something done here. Obviously, the Turfield Stadium is likely to go now that the Guzmahala has been played as well. Electro Power and a Skateboard. Oh, let me just preface this. I'm not upset. I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. Because obviously I'm sitting here. I'm not playing in the Pog Championships. It's a little bit of an awkward time zone for me to play in. But I definitely understand why people are playing with pre-rotation cards. I just hate the fact that they're playing with them. It makes it so hard to test these janky decks out. But that's okay. Vikavolt here didn't quite get the knockout, which it was looking for. We've got ourselves another Butterfree and a energy for next turn. We are going to lose this Paras, but we'll be able to Marnie our opponent down to 4 cards. They're going for Erica's Hospitality here. That's a card that I should have considered. But we're okay. We're in an okay position. We've got a Crushing Hammer. We could potentially flip to stop the Vikavolt from being able to attack us and stop us from using our item cards. Although, to be fair, they just used their item lock, so what am I talking about? We can't play Crushing Hammer. Doi, what am I talking about? What we really want to do is we really want to find ourselves a copy of Parasect off of this Marnie if we can, just to get some extra damage down onto the Vikavolt. Because if we can manage that, then we are going to be in a really strong position. We'll have taken 2 prizes. We cannot complain about that at all. We'll attach the Grass and then Marnie. We'll hope that we can't brick up our opponent. There's a Paras and a Parasect, which is really, really good. We could potentially play down this Butterfree VMAX as well. I don't think we need to. We can probably just G-Max Toxbreeze here and save ourselves some time. Maybe we can get a chance to use a Turbo Patch or something like that. And here the Vikavolt does 180 damage with Poison and the Parasect, which means that if they choose to attack with Paralyzing Bolt here, they could flip tails and knock themselves out, which would be really, really nice. That would give us a potential opportunity to score a couple of early prizes. I'm using the Speed Lightning energy to get some extra energy onto the active, and a counter gain as well for the benched Vikavolt. There's another one of those cards that isn't going to be in the standard format as of a couple of weeks from now. Marnie comes down from our opponent. We lose our energy, but we draw a fresh hand, and there's the confusion. There's the knockout. We've got ourselves 2 prizes. Perfect stuff from Butterfree VMAX. Cannot complain here at all. And since the attack didn't go off, we've got an opportunity to use ourselves our Turbo Patch if there was energy in the bin, which there currently is not. Hit Tails on the Crushing Hammer. That means we don't have any energy at the moment. What we're going to need to do is potentially use Quick Ball, grab ourselves a Dedenne or even a copy of Crobat if we have it. I could use Boss's Orders here and take a knockout on the Oricorio, potentially even gust out the Vikavolt as well. I like the Oricorio. We can draw some extra cards here and try and find an energy, although we are in a bit of a tight spot at the moment if we lose out on not being able to find ourselves a switch out, because that Raichu is going to paralyze us next turn, and that is going to be very, very frustrating. But that's fine. We're at a position now where we can just play all of the items out of our hand before we get item locked, and G-Max Toxbreeze here, take a couple of prizes, because we've got the Poison and the Parasects, which is really, really good. We go down to 2 prizes, and you would think we're in such a strong spot How could this game possibly go wrong? I've got an air balloon here, which is great, and an Evo Incense, but we could so easily be locked out of those cards from a Vikavolt V, so we do have to be careful. We can see the Raichu powering itself up here. We are going to get paralyzed, which means that our Butterfree VMAX has 2 turns to live. Luckily, we have a chance if we are able to draw a Gust. I think that's going to be the critical piece here. We need to take 2 prizes. I don't know how we're going to do it unless our opponent plays down a Dedenne or something like that. I've obviously not been paralyzed before, which is pretty crazy. What we can do is we can attach the energy. I think we're going to play all of these item cards whilst we have the chance, because we may not have an opportunity to. The Evolution Incense don't really matter anyway, because they are completely dead. There are no stage 1 or 2s left in the deck. Probably could have just thrown them away there. But just in case something goes, you know, a little bit different, then I'm sure we could potentially find ourselves a decent card off of them. Our opponent going for the Quick Ball here. Grabbing themselves an Absol, which I'm glad that I played down the Eballoon on the Dedenne here. I was playing around that Absol just in case it came out. So I'm glad that that happened. Another escape board going down onto the Absol here, and they use their GX attacks. I've got a couple of turns, maybe, but obviously if I get paralyzed, if this Butterfree gets paralyzed, it is going to be really, really bad. I'll play the Dedenne in the active. Top deck boss? No, didn't top deck the boss, which is unfortunate. Could just retreat here into the Butterfree and then get the GMAX Toxbreeze, although to be fair, that probably is a mistake. Our opponent is just going to be able to get our Butterfree paralyzed here, which is quite frustrating. We're just going to have to hope that we get something off of the prizes, which I don't think it is very likely. We could have potentially used our Dedenne to retreat into Parasect there, give ourselves an extra turn, but it wasn't to be in the end, and I think from here we are going to see our opponent win the game. They could just Gust and knock out our Dedenne here. They've got Super Zap Cannon as an option, so it's not going to be too hard for them to win. And unfortunately, that is the way this game ended up going. And I don't think that we could have set up any better with Butterfree. So I don't know what else you want. Like, what more could we possibly do? We thought we'd give it one more shot. This time I've got Matt on the other side. He's going to be playing Mad Party. We'll see if Butterfree can't deal with this. I'm a little bit skeptical, but potentially Mad Party could slow down a little bit and make a bit of a meal of this one. We'll see whether it's going to be possible, but I'm not putting a huge amount of stock in Butterfree VMAX at the moment. Hey, listen, the fact that I've managed to get a deck that can attack for 200 once is in itself pretty stellar for me. I'm pretty happy with that. Got a solid hand going second. We've got Quick Ball. We can discard an energy and potentially use our flips to get ourselves some extra energy into the field of play. We can Marnie and slow our opponent down, which is fantastic. That's the Sinistea coming down on Matt's side of the field now, and a Great Ball. And grab out themselves another Sinistea. That seems like a pretty good start. This Mad Party list, by the way, is really, really fun. Like, if you haven't had a chance to play Mad Party yet, then definitely consider it, because it is really, really good. But yeah, no, pretty solid start for Matt. Unfortunately, starting that Dedenne is a bit of a pain. It's going to be stuck in the active, and could potentially give me a chance to get across the line if it does happen that Matt can't get out of the active. That's my hope. They can't get the Switch. There's not that many copies of Switch in the Mad Party list that Matt is playing, so I'm pretty happy with that. Look at that, top decks the Turbo Patch, which is really good. We can grab ourselves a Paras here, which I really like. We'll attach a Grass Energy, but we'll see if we can get the Turbo Patch heads. We can. So look at this, look at this. We've got the energy, we've got 2 on a Butterfree. Now we can Marnie, and I have to just hope that Matt can't get the knockout on this Butterfree V. If he does, it's going to be pretty rough for us. We'll Dizzying Poison and put 10 damage on this Dedenne. Not necessarily required, but it's fun to use the attack, so that's fine. If Matt does get 10 Mad Partiers into the discard pile, then he will very easily be able to get a knockout. But I think there's only 1 or 2 at the moment, so it's possible. It's possible that that slowing down that we talked about could potentially happen. Although a Poltergeist is a bit of an issue, I'm not a big fan of that at all. Being able to use that T-Break, ability is going to be a big deal, getting themselves a couple of extra cards. Here comes Mr. Rhyme with the Evo Incense. That'll probably get traded away with T-Break. There goes 2 more cards. Mr. Rhyme in the bin means there's some extra energy, extra damage, sorry, for this Mad Party deck. And a Roxy as well, so we'll probably see some more Mad Partiers into the discard pile here. Another Mr. Rhyme. So just 3 more Pokemon. That's 2 total, but does manage to find another T-Break Poltergeist. This is a really good start, and an Energy, and an Air Balloon. So we might see a retreat into Bumblebee this turn, which I don't mind at all. I think this is actually a pretty solid move. And come in and deal some damage. Whether you're going to be able to take a knockout or not is another question. Now, we've got the Turffield Stadium in hand, so we could potentially use that to grab Butterfree VMAX and retreat into the Butterfree V. That could potentially be cool, but I'm not entirely sure what the best play is going to be here. Might just go for the Dizzying Poison off of the active. If we can't find an energy, another glaring Mr. Rhyme. Let's see how long these Mad Party turns take, but they are drawing through a lot of cards, to be fair. There's another Quick Ball, discarding another Mr. Rhyme, you would think. There it goes into the bin, another Quick Ball. Probably grabs a Dedenne here, or a Bumblebee for next turn. Use those to get another couple of cards off of T-Break. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens here. I don't think Matt's going to be able to get that knockout. I don't think that I saw enough Mad Partiers go into the bin, but then again, I didn't realize he still had another T-Break to go, so it might be worth finding out. Here comes the Bumblebee. The Mad Party attack is coming out and does only 80 damage, so there's only 4 in there. I shouldn't have been so concerned. That's okay. We'll play down the Turffield Stadium, and then I think it's probably better to Turffield now. Use that to grab probably a Butterfree VMAX. You can put that into the active as a free retreat option, and then research and see what we come up with. We've got a bunch of stuff here, which is really, really good. We could actually put that energy onto the V on the bench if we wanted to. We'll use the Evo Incense to grab Parasect, which is going to give us some extra damage. Not that we need it, really. We will just attach to the active and then G-Max Tox Breeze. That's fine. Obviously, wouldn't have been able to get the knockout if we had have gone for the Butterfree V, because we didn't have the 2 Parasects on the bench. If we had a second one, then we would have been able to get there, but that's okay. This is probably a better place to be in anyway, because if Matt does manage to get the knockout, which is still 11 Mad Partiers away from happening, it could be a good option to use a Butterfree V to take a knockout, potentially. We'll see how we go. Matt playing down the Marshadow. Gets rid of that Turffield Stadium, which is quite frustrating because I would have liked to have used that again, to be fair. And then you'd think is going to have another one of these big long turns where he draws through a ton of cards trying to get as many Mad Partiers into the discard pile as possible. And this is the thing, right? This is why this deck is so much better than Lost March, because you can just keep drawing. There's a lot of opportunity to draw cards and get those Pokemon in the discard pile, whereas Lost March just didn't have that. It was not as easy to do to just get those Mad Partiers into the bin. But here comes a research. You're going to see a couple of them going to the discard pile now. Matt really drawing through his deck here. There is, what, 6, 8 Mad Party Pokemon in that discard pile now. We are looking for a potential 11 to do 220. And I think there's still T-Parties to go, or T-Breaks to go, sorry. So there is plenty of opportunity here for Matt to get the knockout on the VMAX here. If he does, you would think that he's very easily going to go on to win this game. But there is always the opportunity with Mad Party that things don't quite go the way that he has intended. Here comes the Mad Party now, not able to get the knockout. So there is a 260 damage on the Butterfree VMAX here. And look at this, we do manage to get ourselves a Turffield Stadium, which is really, really good. We will shuffle our hand into our deck. We've got a couple of Crushing Hammer, which isn't ideal, but we do have the Parasect, so I can grab a Butterfree VMAX out of the deck here with the Turffield Stadium and play down that Parasect now so that I've got myself a decent chance to attack. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Dizzying Poison Butterfree now, and since he's attacking with Bumblebees, I'm going to be able to get the knockout with it, so better save up that Butterfree VMAX if possible to potentially get a knockout some other way. But it is going to be quite tough. I'm looking for like a boss's orders or something like that to get a couple of prizes on this Dedenne before the VMAX gets knocked out. So we'll see if that's possible. But right now, Matt, you'd think is in the driver's seat. He's going to be able to get prize after prize after prize here. All he needs to do is consistently find energy because his attackers are pretty much already in the field of play. Here comes an Evo Incense to grab another stage 1 or 2 out of the deck. If there is any, there doesn't appear to be. There is a triple accelerated energy, so we'll probably see that attack off soon. And another Dedenne, so suddenly I have just had a win condition opened up for me. I might potentially be able to get there if everything goes according to plan, but unfortunately at the moment, I'm only dealing 50 damage with that single energy attack from Butterfree V. We'll see whether or not we are going to be able to manipulate some prizes here to try and win this one. We'll chuck the Parasect up into the active because we've got the air balloon there. That's a very interesting Dedenne here. Let's just have a look with Evolution Incense. There is a VMAX left in the deck, so I could Dedenne here and try and find some energy with which I can attach to this Butterfree V via energy, Turbo Patch. What am I talking about? I can't even get the names of the cards right. So I'll Dedenne, we'll see if we can get a Turbo Patch or 2. We've managed to find Turbo Patch and we've managed to find Great Catcher. We also flip heads, which is really, really good. Now I'm in this really weird position where I might actually, potentially, be able to win the game. It's going to rely on a couple of cards coming off the top. Maybe a Quick Ball, maybe a Research or something like that. But I'm thinking if we can Great Catcher here, we'll use the Butterfree and the Crushing Hammer up. We don't really need those anymore. Gust up the Dedenne, retreat into the damaged VMAX, and then G-Max Tox Breeze. That will take a knockout on the Dedenne. It'll take 2 prizes, and if we are lucky enough to find a Quick Ball or a Boss's Orders, then we might actually be able to steal this one. A Marnie and a Quick Ball for us, so that's really strong. All we need to find now, off of a Crobat, I think is what's left in the deck, we need to find a Boss and an Energy. That is, of course, presuming that our opponent knocks us out here, and it looks like he's going to. Here comes the Mad Party, so we will see, is it possible for me to win the game? I have a chance with Butterfree, I can beat Mad Party, I can do it. All we need to do is find that Boss's Orders. We have 19 cards left in deck. We need to make sure that we draw as many of them as we can. There's a Dust Island. That's really disappointing. That card doesn't do anything, as we mentioned before. So it's going to be a relatively easy one to play, though. That's the important thing. We can play down Dust Island here, replace our Turffield Stadium, and then go for that boss. We've got 6 cards here. We need to find Boss and Energy. Here we go. Crobat V. Let's see if we can't get the win. There's an Energy, but there's no Boss. So, unfortunately, not going to be able to win this one. We're just going to have to hope that Matt doesn't have a Gust on his side of the field. I think that's pretty much all we could do. We might be able to research now to try and find a boss for next turn if there is one, but if Matt doesn't have a boss, then it doesn't matter because we win the game anyway. So really disappointing missing out on that boss there. It wasn't likely, but it wasn't unlikely either. It was actually relatively reasonable that we were going to hit it, and there it is. Just to add insult to injury, comes into the hand that we just drew with the research. We'll take the knockout on the Bunnelby. And now it's all in Matt's hands. Does he have access to an Energy or not? We got down to 1 prize again. We couldn't quite get there with Butterfree VMAX. Out comes the Poltergeist. You would presume that the Gust is coming. Energy Attachment and Gust will win the game on a Parasect or a Dedenne or a Crobat, to be fair. There's enough Mad Partiers in the discard pile. There's the Energy. And here comes the boss. So close. So close to winning that one with Butterfree VMAX, but hey, it's a combo deck, and sometimes I just have bad ideas. So don't play this one. I mean, it's a challenge. If you want to challenge yourself, then play it for sure. It's got some nice looking cards, like they're pretty. Butterfree VMAX is a pretty looking card, but I am very, very happy to say bye-bye Butterfree, goodbye. bye-bye. I don't ever want to see you again. You were horrible to me. It was an awful experience. Thank you, everyone, for joining me through that, whatever that was. I don't even know how to explain it. It was horrible. Terrifying, frankly. Experience. Thank you very much for coming. If you liked it, enjoyed it, then please consider subscribing. Click the button above the Sableye head if you want to. Give it a like as well. That would be great. Watch the videos on the left-hand side of the screen or in the playlist at the bottom right-hand corner. You can see more decks from Darkness Ablaze. Check those out if you would like. Thank you, everyone, for coming along, and we'll see you next time for more from the Sableyes. Bye.